to Fertile Talks, the global podcast celebrating the diversity of fertility journeys. I'm your host, Dr. Yemi Famuyiwa. Whether you're just starting or simply curious, this is your safe space. In each episode, we will bring you expert insights, heartfelt personal stories, and the latest in reproductive health. Our goal is to break down barriers, tackle stigma, and provide support and hope. So whether you're in the Americas, Africa, or Asia, Fertile Talks is your companion on the path to parenthood. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Fertile Talks. All right, so we'll get started. And today, the topic about quality of egg or sperm is really a lot. So what we're doing is just breaking it down a little bit tonight. And we go back and forth between talking about the egg quality as well as the sperm quality. And we'll talk about more about the sperm at a later date. So today I wanted to focus on egg quality. So we'll talk about how egg quality affects fertility. How does it affect what the yield you get? Okay, so let me go here. Let me see. Okay, so I'll go to my next step. When we refer to egg quality, we're actually referring to the ability of the egg to be fertilized and to yield a viable embryo that has a reasonable chance of actually implanting into the embryo and developing at term. So it sounds very simple, but for you to have a baby at the end of the road, you have to start all the way back at the level of the eggs. Let's look at the building block of the eggs. The most important factor in the egg is actually the DNA inside the egg. And I've put this slide up to show you how important it is to have a capable DNA coming from both the mother as well as the father. What happens is the DNA of the sperm and the egg has to be reduced from its 46 chromosome, what would I say, the 46 chromosomes that you have in an adult woman or adult man. That has to be torn down to 23 chromosomes in an egg, and that fertilizes with another sperm that has 23 chromosomes, and you yield a normal embryo, okay? And that's what this is describing in terms of the egg being fertilized with sperm to yield a normal embryo. Well, how does that happen? You have to go to the level of the DNA. What happens is, in an egg, the chromosome of the egg has to be separated down. So you have your chromosome from the egg being pulled apart. So you have one unit of DNA in the egg. It has to be reduced to this level in order to combine with the DNA of the sperm. Okay, so how does that happen? The biggest thing is when you are getting the egg ready and prepared to be fertilized, it takes a lot of energy to move the DNA to where you need it so that it can actually be fertilized. Part of the problem that decreases the quality of the egg is if you have anything that decreases the ability or decreases the production of energy that's needed to actually result in the division of the egg. Let me show you this little movie. I think I've shown you before. Um, I think it goes by very, very fast. So I'm going to go one more time, and I'll try to stop it where I'm, okay, start it. Okay. When the egg is ready to start being divided, the DNA within the egg has to line up along the pole in the nucleus. Then you have a center at each pole that will now generate what is called a microtubule. This center here requires a lot of energy to generate. Think of it as a pulley rope that goes to the DNA in the middle of the cell and pulls it apart. You need an incredible amount of energy. That energy is found in what is called the mitochondria. We have found out what happens as a woman gets older. First off, you do decrease the quantity of eggs you have, but the competency of those eggs go down. The problem is, as you are exposed to environmental toxins, or maybe in some cases, maybe genetic, you may encounter things that decrease the ability of the mitochondria to release that burst of energy to pull the DNA apart. All right. Most of the things that hinder this separation has to do with anything that would increase inflammation in the body. And I'm going to go into that later. So for this to happen, and of course, this, has been sped up, but it happens fairly rapidly in cell division. You need a lot of energy to separate that DNA from 46 to 23. And then you see it now, it separates again. So you get 4 sister chromatids from each one division. All right. So bear this in mind as we talk about potential things that could disrupt this. Okay. So a lot of energy is being used up even before you get to where you can even fertilize the egg. Now, when you fertilize the egg, the DNA that was pulled apart for a reason, it's reduced in a process called meiosis, has to be paired up with a comparable chromosome from the sperm. And then they replicate, they double, and they also shuffle each other up so that you come out with a totally different combination of DNA than you started with. And that's why 2 siblings cannot be 100% alike. And once that process takes place, the resulting embryo undergoes its own rapid division as well, right? So it immediately starts to divide first into 2 cells, then into 4 cells, then 8 cells, then a rapid division to where it becomes what we call the blastocyst, where the cells that will form the baby are populated at the bottom, and the parts that will form the placenta or afterbirth surrounds the baby in this ring-like fashion called the blastocyst. So you see there's a lot of energy being expended, a lot of division going on. There are a lot of things that could yield problems when this whole, think of it as a perfectly choreographed ballet dance takes place. If you introduce an insult during this phase of development, you are going to have abnormal genes resulting in the embryo that may either A, not implant in the mother's womb, B, implant and stop growing, you have a miscarriage, C, implant and be genetically abnormal, you have an abnormal fetus, some of which may survive, some are not compatible with life, and so on and so forth. So I just showed you 2 rapid choreographed sequence of events that takes place before you even get to where you're going to see the embryo. Now, what can you do to aid this whole sequence of events? Keep in mind that, and I digress, I apologize. I was making slides up until a few hours ago, so some of the things I'm going to talk about are not in my slides, and I hope that gives us room for further discussion at another meeting. But you see, I showed you how the DNA is separated. You need a burst of energy to do this, and then you partner with the sperm, and then rapid division goes on. If you have a highly inflammatory environment, this whole process is thrown off track, right? And can even yield to people having recurrent pregnancy losses. So the most common thing that causes this, and the most common abnormality you have is in the chromosome, which I showed you, and I showed you why, is if you have an insult at an early phase of this. What are the potential insults? Let me turn my AC up a little bit. Things like contaminants in your environment. And I know that we've discussed this ad nauseum in this forum, but most people don't know things like BPA, your bisphenols, your phthalates. They can act as endocrine disruptors. So they disrupt the brain's ability to choreograph this event by interfering with the hormones needed for some of this activity. Where do you get some of those things? If you eat hot food made or prepared in a plastic container, you will leach off phthalates into your diet that can have this effect. And indeed, there are studies that showed that women who have a higher level of phthalates in them have a higher incidence of miscarriage and also have a higher incidence of infertility. So try to eliminate, you're not going to perfectly eliminate it because it's everywhere. What you can do is try to reduce the highest culprits. And you can easily research products that have phthalates and BPA and try to avoid some of them. But what most people don't know, things like perfume, deodorants, lotion, makeup, nail polish, some of this have a higher than other events. So you can actively look for products that have lower levels, and they may be advertised as such. Now, some of the things advertised as that are really truly not that free. So you really have to do your homework and know where you're getting things from. I know that I think Whole Foods, they sell deodorants and some of their antiperspirants with low BPA, or they try to make sure it's organic in that event. But be careful of that. Now, if you have a high level of this phthalates or whatever, there are some supplements that may negate some of these effects. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the supplements that you can use. Now, having said this, I don't want everybody to go crunch everything on this list. If you're taking 2 to 3 supplements, they're called antioxidants, that's probably fine. Because I'll hopefully mention some that are harmful that you don't want to ingest. Vitamin D, we talked about that. That's the vitamin of life, isn't it? We now know that it's critical in that process you saw just now. And it also works as an antioxidant. Most people are vitamin deficient. So you might be interested in having your doctor check your vitamin D level, because you may need to supplement it or may need to initially boost it up with a high dose and then maintain a higher dose of vitamin D to keep you at that level. I recommend a prenatal vitamin formulation that has, for younger women, it has 2,000 of vitamin D in it. And for women older than 35, it actually bumps it up to 35, to 3,000. Folic acid. The key thing with folic acid is it's very difficult to see folic acid in the right amount in your over-the-counter preparations, right? So you might see some vitamins that claim to be the best, but they only have like 400 of folic acid. That's not enough. That's just not enough. An adequate amount should be about 1,000 folic acid. And also, you might want to check that you have the folic acid in the bioavailable form. The bioavailable form of folic acid is methylfolate, right? There are some people that have genetic mutations where they cannot convert some of the commercially available folic acid to the bioavailable form. You can easily get this checked out if you want. Ask your doctor to run a genetic test, or simply just take a brand that has the bioavailable form. So the brand I recommend has the bioavailable form. The only time you worry about it is if you are intolerant of the bioavailable form, you might want to take a lower dose. Vitamin B12 is another antioxidant that may help in reducing what we call oxidative stress. What is oxidative stress? In the process of carrying out its business, your machinery that releases energy in the cells is going to give off what we call free radicals. And you need something to sponge up these free radicals so they don't cause damage within the DNA as it's moving around doing its job. All these supplements are labeled antioxidants, and they help to reduce the oxidative stress. For some older women, I might add melatonin at night because melatonin and DHEA in older women who have a low ovarian reserve may actually help to, it acts as an antioxidant. One thing that I do recommend for women over the age of 35 and women who have a low ovarian reserve, even if they're younger, is CoQ10. And I think we've talked a lot about CoQ10 in this formula. It's a great antioxidant, but you have to be careful that you also are taking it in a form in which it can be absorbed. The brand I use has a polymer form that makes it readily available to the system. So it has been linked to improving egg quality. Other things you can use include L-acetylcysteine. Again, this works at the level of glutathione, but like I said, you don't need to take everything on this list. There are some places where they've given women with recurrent pregnancy losses L-acetylcysteine and alpha-lipoic acid that are both antioxidants. And the same inflammatory process that we talked about, decreasing egg quality, may also be associated with patients who have recurrent pregnancy loss. So if all else fails, you can add it to these patients. One of the things that I'll point out, hopefully we'll get to it, is a lot of these supplements and coenzymes, you can actually also get it in your food. I like to eat my vitamins, as I say, and we'll talk about some of the things that I share with my patients. Let's see. Vitamin E, we talked about myo-inositol. Myo-inositol is helpful. It helps in the glucose pathway. It's helpful in patients who have PCO patients, polycystic ovary syndrome. So in my PCO patients, I'll supplement them with myo-inositol as well as the core vitamin I use. DHEA am I given my older patients who have diminished ovarian reserve. All right, so one of the things I give my patients and that come in is I talk about what can you do to prepare your body. Now, the thing about your eggs is the egg that you ovulate in 1 month is actually pre-selected and has started growing 2 or 3 months down the line. So if you want to influence your eggs and say you want to get pregnant by Christmas, then you want to start watching what you put in your body, what supplements you give your body, what you do with your body 6 to 8 weeks before the time that you intend. You want to boost the quality of those eggs by decreasing the toxins I talked about, by taking some supplements that might help you, and also what you eat. So again, this has been talked ad nauseum. These are the kind of diets that will decrease inflammation, right? Think decrease inflammation as a systemic effect. By the way, I like to think that when you decrease your overall inflammation, you live longer anyway. You have a lower risk of heart problems, you have a lower risk of dementia, your brain functions better. Your eggs and your sperm will love it for it. Avoid trans fat. One of the tricky things I like to say is if it's solid at room temperature, well, it doesn't take rocket science to see what it's doing to your body, right? So avoid trans fat. You want to you look at the oils that you use in cooking. Olive oil has been shown to be very good. And if you like to heat your stuff, like I like to air fry my plantains, I use avocado oil because it doesn't break down under heat. Choose the carbohydrates that will break down slowly, right? Your local yams, African yams will do that. Rice, it's going to break down right away and spike your glucose in no time. So you probably want to cut down that rice, bread, pasta, and choose your slow carbs instead. Look at the kinds of vegetables you're eating, gives you extra iron. I always say, drink to your health. I love, love, love water. And I'm on a sparkling mineral water binge right now. So I tell my people, if you don't like the taste of regular water, go with sparkling water. And I put a plug in for Costco. I think they have the best tasting sparkling water, and it's in a can. Check your weight. It's very, very difficult to get pregnant if you're out of what we call the fertility zone. So I have some patients who have a BMI, in excess of 40. Yes, we can get them pregnant, but it's a little harder. So I try to work with them with trying to decrease that BMI, because sometimes they just don't respond, or if they respond, they have more complications. And then the following is just I won't bore you too much with it. I'll fly through it. These are part of the list I give my patients. It doesn't tell them you have to eat this. It just tells them what kinds of food will have what kind of nutrients in it. And you can see what if you like, if you don't like oranges, well, kiwis are very good with vitamin C, or strawberry. Make sure you're eating organic strawberry, because they are one of the dirty fruits out there that soak up a lot of pesticides and insecticides. Oh, I'm sorry you can't see this. We just talked about plant-based proteins. I think you guys have talked about this ad nauseum. I love, love, love nuts, and I love lentils and beans, but it's a plant-based protein. It's rich, it's good, tasty. Eggs, what can eggs do for you? I don't eat eggs that much anyway, but if you do eat eggs, it is high in the B complex vitamins that are important. It also has choline for fetal growth. The vitamin that I recommend for my patients actually has choline in it. So, if you don't like eggs, if you take the Theralogix brand of vitamins, you'll get this supplemented. And eggs also are rich in biotin, folate, B12, if you want the natural. What is tomatoes good for? High in lycopene, which is very good for, it helps with sperm motility. Make sure it's not contaminated with your pesticides, because it can be. Yogurt, if you are not allergic to dairy. can help improve your biome, has high zinc, which you know is also an antioxidant. So if you like me, you don't like to take zinc as a supplement, then do yogurt. I love yogurt with some granola mixed in there. You get your zinc supplementation. Berries, I love, love, love berries. They have just very rich in antioxidants. The more color you have in your fruits and vegetables, the more antioxidants you're going to have. So if you do the color mech, you just put a whole rainbow of color on your plate. I think you'll be covering a lot. So I have come to the end of my slide. I'm sorry I talked too long, and I will entertain questions.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Fertile Talks. We hope today's episode has provided you with valuable insights and support for your fertility journey. Remember, you are not alone. Now, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please simply leave us a comment. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe with a friend. Your ratings, your shares, and your reviews are greatly appreciated and is going to help us serve more of our listening audience. Thank you once again. This is Dr. Famiyiwa.